This week in your reading, one thing I want you to practice is your summarizing skills. So remember, summarizing is when you tell the main things that happened in the beginning, middle, and ending. So you don't need to remember all the details of who said exactly what and which words did they use and what color coat were they wearing, but the main details at the beginning, middle, and ending. So let's practice that with a few classic fairy tales.
Let's start with a summary of the Three Little Pigs. So this story, in the beginning, the mother pig sends the three pigs off to build their homes. In the middle of the story, they build their homes, and the wolf comes around. He comes to the first house and then the second house. And at the end of the story, the wolf ends up at the brick house, the very last house, and he's not able to blow it down. And depending on which version you read, he sometimes climbs up to the roof and goes down the chimney, ends up in a boiling pot of water. All right, so that would be the ending of that story. Let's summarize Cinderella. So in the beginning of Cinderella, Cinderella is with her stepmother and stepsisters. They're very unkind to her, and she has to clean the house for them. And then in the middle of the story, there's now a ball. Cinderella can't go, but the fairy godmother comes, gets her a dress and all sorts of things so that she can go to the ball, and the prince is just enamored with her. And then in the ending of the story, Cinderella has to run back home, but the prince comes looking for whoever fits the glass slipper, and he finds her in the end, and they live happily ever after. Let's summarize Goldilocks and the Three Bears. So in the beginning of Goldilocks and the Three Bears, the bears leave the house. Goldilocks comes to the house. In the middle of the story, she tries a bunch of their things, their chairs, their porridge, their beds. She finds the just right things that she likes. And then at the end of the story, the bears come back home, and there is Goldilocks sleeping in their bed. Let's summarize Red Riding Hood. So again, we want to talk about the beginning, the middle, and the end. So at the beginning, Red Riding Hood's mother sends her out with some things to take to her grandmother's house. In the middle of the story, Red Riding Hood walks through the forest. She meets the wolf and tells him where she's going. The wolf goes to the granny's house and eats her up. And then when Red Riding Hood gets there, she sees the wolf. In the end of the story, there are a couple of different versions, but often the wolf eats Red Riding Hood, and the woodsman has to come and save Red Riding Hood from the wolf. That's the ending of the story. Let's talk about one last story. Let's talk about Jack and the Beanstalk. So in this story, there's a poor country boy named Jack. He trades the cow for a handful of magic beans. Then in the middle of the story, the bean seeds grow into an enormous beanstalk that reaches into the clouds, and Jack climbs up the beanstalks and finds a bunch of things that belong to the giant. But when the giant hears him, he says, "Fee, fi, fo, fum, I smell the blood of the Englishman." And then at the end of the story, Jack is able to outwit the giant, and he comes back home with a goose and magical harp and all sorts of other things, and he chops down the stalk. So that would be the ending of that story.
So grade twos, I hope you're able to practice summarizing this week as you read different stories. Even nonfiction, you can summarize the important facts if you're reading a nonfiction book too. Happy reading, guys. Bye.